Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adrian Tan Show, where we deep dive into the cutting edge trends shaping the future of work and talent. I'm your host, Adrian Tan. And in today's episode, we are tackling a hot topic that's on every business leader's mind, the AI talent crunch, particularly in Singapore. Despite the city-state's push to become a global AI hub, many companies are struggling to find the right talent to fuel their AI ambition. Joining us today is Mark Samlal, APAC GM at Deel, a company at the forefront of global hiring solutions. Mark brings a wealth of experience in navigating the complex landscape of international talent acquisition, particularly in the tech and AI sectors. So today especially we'll be discussing Deel's recent survey, which revealed some eye-opening statistics about the AI talent landscape in Singapore. Do you know that while 86% of large organizations expect increased demand for AI skills, nearly 40% are still struggling to find the right and qualified candidates? Mark will share his insights on how companies can overcome these challenges, the role of global hiring in addressing the talent shortage, and the potential controversies surrounding such approach. So whether you are business leaders grappling with AI talent acquisition, a professional looking to break into the field, or simply curious about the future of work in Singapore, you won't want to miss this conversation. And let's dive in with Mark from Deel. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Excellent, Adrian. Thank you for having me.
I really love your backdrop. Can you explain to people who are listening, where are you right now?
I'm sitting in my shop house here in Melbourne, Australia. So it's a 1980s building. So it's nearly cool.
Nearly cool. Almost there, almost there. Give it a few more years to age.
Almost there. But I'm lucky enough behind me to have a reminder of one of my key business successes, besides successes of when I was an entrepreneur, because I am a Singaporean permanent resident and live in Singapore when I listed my Singaporean startup here on the Australian Stock Exchange. So lots of shared wisdom and ideas from my board and my experiences to share today.
Awesome. We'll be really happy to get all your insights and wisdom in today's episode. But let's dive in on one of the key things that really popped out to me about this survey, which, by the way, I'll share in the show notes so everyone listening here can have access to it and read more later on. So it mentioned that 39% of large enterprises in Singapore struggle to find qualified AI candidates. And what are some of the more innovative strategies you've seen companies implement to overcome this talent shortage?
So, Adrian, not all of us have got the budgets like Amazon and Google with which to embark massive AI programs internally in their business. So what we have seen typically organizations to do, and I'm very passionate about small to medium enterprise and mid-market size enterprise, because that's who employs most of the world. What we're really seeing is the change in philosophy of where talent is and how to bring that talent. So I would say embarking on understanding where the talent is. We've got some great tools with which to do that, both deal and commercially, and breaking down your own nuances around hiring are the two key attributes around ensuring that you've got a strategy that links to your business growth.
And based on so many different companies, thousands of companies that you are working with, have you seen any really interesting approach, something that really jumped out at you? When I was doing recruitment, I actually some time to distill some of the more innovative recruitment strategies people had. And some of the interesting one, and this may seem a bit cringy when I mention it right now, but when I found it, I was like, okay, that's amazing. So competitor A is trying to poach software engineer from another company, and knowing that software engineer often do overtime, they send pizza to those engineers. And the pizza are made. You can see that the pizza is a QR code. So when the engineer opened up the box, like, oh, wait, this looks like a QR code. Let me take out my smartphone and see if it works. And it works, of course. It actually brings them to the hiring page of the other company. So are you seeing something that is of that level creatively speaking, that maybe, especially smaller businesses, like you said, that do not have the war chest of an Amazon or Google, can really start thinking about and try to embed into how they approach the job market?
That's a fantastic life experience. And I wish I'd thought of that when I started up my Singaporean business, which is now a part of Deel. Where we're seeing our customers really focus their abilities on Adrian, is making sure that they've got a global profile and the technology that we have today, such as podcasts that we're undertaking, but also their social media platforms and cultivating various different ones that suit their marketplace and telling their true, honest stories is where a lot of people are driving their talent acquisition programs for. Just recently, here in Singapore, Deel, we undertook our own Telegram channel as an example, which is a bit different to what we would normally do and what organizations normally would do embarking. So understand the nuances of your
Mm.
business, but more importantly, understand where those particular target people would be, create events, create online presence, and most importantly, be clear and honest about what you're going to do when you arrive at this particular company and how you're going to
I
achieve.
really love that approach because I have of many companies going to Telegram, maybe more so at the job board level, but not at the company level. So it's really very innovative. And I feel that is perhaps also something lacking in many companies that has been around long. And maybe their talent acquisition team, or maybe specifically the marketing team, to do the equivalent of running a marathon, but not to break a sweat. Possible.
Yeah,
If you run a marathon, you're going to bleed, you're going to have blisters, something is going to happen. But of course, you're going to also cross the finishing line, get a medal, and boast about it. So I think things like that are something that companies maybe could take a leaf from Deal to really start experimenting with and to try it out. Because if you never try, you would never know.
exactly. And I think it's also understanding the mindset of AI talent around the world. They typically may not want to be an
Mm,
employee and may be wanting to run their own show and be feeling as though that they're contributing to their own career, building up their own network, building up their own experience base as an individual contributor. So let's not pigeonhole everybody straight into the
mm.
employee perspective and make sure that they're seen as contributing to your organization, whether it be a contractor, whether it be an employee, whether it be an advisor. How are you going to bring that talent to play? So typically when I started my business early on in Singapore, firstly, I didn't have anything like the ecosystem today there is. And I've spoken about that before, about how jealous I am of founders today in Singapore. Understand exactly where that drives and where that motivation is of the employee. And I've made some terrible mistakes. I've asked people in the past to create their own limited liability companies in the US so they'd have the ability to work for me. Crazy things, but we live and learn.
Yeah, that's really a heavy lift to create their own LLP. Now,
Stories,
back to the survey.
stories.
One of the that really pop out to me is the high salary expectation, cited by 63% of the organizations. Granted, AI is in hot demand right now and all, but do you think these demands are justified, or do you think they would just create an unsustainable hiring environment?
Question, Adrian, and I parallel this back to when I was running a Singaporean listed company, VicPlas, still listed on the Singaporean Stock Exchange. And one part of VicPlas was a medical device manufacturing company. And when we had great attraction in Singapore of medical device companies, the EDB was doing their job by bringing tremendous organizations and fulfilling the supply chain needs for Asia for large medical devices. It was quality control engineers and quality assurance engineers, 15 years ago that had these huge demands in Singapore to be able to make sure that your product was fit for purpose. I'm really looking to the AI engineering space and thinking, you know what? It's giving me some very similar
Hmm.
parallels to quality device manufacturers in the medical devices areas as what I experienced way back then. You need to blend and understand where the talent is. Not everybody will land within 15 kilometers from your headquartered office here in Singapore. Not everybody will be in our beautiful island tomorrow. So again, going back to what is your strategy around ensuring that your business is understood well by the community? How are you promoting it? And as a founder, are you really committed to that journey around being a recruiter? Because it's a big part of
Hmm.
your life, being a recruiter, whether you're a founder, whether you're leading a business unit, or whether you're looking to expand into a new market, new geography, you need to be a recruiter. So what are those skill sets that you're particularly engendering? So blend, if you can find AI talent somewhere in the world that doesn't have the same salary requirements as what it may be in Singapore, then blend your
Yeah,
talent.
I something many Singaporeans as tourists would have found out as they travel with the Singapore currency to overseas. Things are so much cheaper and companies can take the
Yeah.
same leave. I just came back from Japan. A pair of Nike Metcon costs only $150. If I buy them online, $220.
Right.
Same thing. You probably will be able to get your talent far cheaper from a different source if you're able to open your eyes beyond just the local boundaries. And of course, this in itself highlights the fact that nearly half of organizations are open to hiring AI talent from abroad. Is still new to this, or may still be sitting on the fence despite what COVID has taught them. What are some of the key advantages and potential pitfalls of this approach based on your experience?
Well, the key advantage, I hope that I can be clear about this. You're not going to make same mistakes as what I've done as a founder and look for everybody within 15 kilometers of Tanjong Pagar. It's going to be a challenge. And apologies for the non-Singaporean listeners of your podcast, but that's a very nice place based here in Singapore. But what I'm focused on and what I think that the key point will be here is that there are pitfalls whether you hire in a traditional mentality as an employee coming into the office every day, and there are pitfalls whether you choose different methods of hiring and expanding your talent acquisition, whether bringing people on as a contractor from New Zealand or whether it be from Brazil or whether it be somebody that you choose to have as an employee, but through Deal's employer of record status where they're treated completely as an employee and get all the benefits. From Mexico, open your eyes, understand what it's going to take to be a leader of that type of talent across the globe and be aware of it. The great thing about Singapore is that we've been typically doing this nearshore, Malaysia, Indonesia, with a stretch to India for quite some time, but the talent is literally everywhere and we can't stop our process of advancement of our companies and our shareholders' benefits by thinking everybody will come to us.
I understand that. And of course, there are always compliance issues when hiring internationally. And according to the survey, 42% of the businesses face such compliance issues. Do you think the government could do more to facilitate global hiring? If you can advocate for any specific changes, what would they be?
So advocating for change in
In
Singapore.
Singapore in general, but let's start with Singapore.
Okay. So Singapore is doing an amazing job pertaining to AI and talent acquisition. We know that the government's investing over $1 billion in the next 5 years just to address this area for all businesses in Singapore. And there is a massive push on skills retraining, both existing employees in Singapore to be undertaking skills retraining and also new graduates and making sure that the courses at our higher education institutions are fit for purpose. So that will certainly fill a big gap of the predicted 10,000 roles in Singapore, but there's always more to do. And what I would point to all of your listeners to is understand that policy is forever changing. Deal has a policy arm, and recently we held a forum with our advisory board for Deal policy in the US where we undertook to help organizations as well as government seek new and innovative measures around their policy. Singapore's definitely at the forefront of all of this, Adrian. I wouldn't want to say that I'm lobbying for anything more than this, that we open up and we assure that talent has all levels of education and has all levels of abilities. And maybe that talent can be opened up through employment pass and visas and the such. But so far, country's doing a great
That's
job.
great to know. Now, of course, as we talk about AI and it's continued to evolve, avoid the discussion that, oh, AI is going to take away my job. AI is going to make my job go away. Do you personally foresee certain jobs becoming obsolete And how should companies and individuals prepare for this potential disruption?
So fight the fight it with fire. If you believe that's going to be the case, undertake some skills retraining that the Singaporean government's offering everybody if you believe that's going to be the case. But there will definitely be elements of tedious and really hard grind effort that organizations just won't want to embark on doing themselves. And shareholders of technology companies and service companies are expecting the types of enhancements to profitability that AI generates on organizations' profit and loss elements. So there is no choice with which to think that if you are in a particular segment of the market and you believe that your role has the ability to be AI
Mm,
replaced, although that would be very small, then undertake education to allow yourself to be able to service
mm,
that market. We just talked about thousands and thousands of people being retrained in Singapore alone. Fortunate that has a government that has that foresight to be able to do that. But it won't come immediately. There will be a generational change in this, Adrian, but there will be
mm.
change.
Yeah, I agree. When I first got to know about AI, ChatGPT, and all, I think within my space of marketing people, everyone was firstly fascinated, but slowly become paranoia. This taking the entire department away. But as people start experimenting with the tool, they realize it's a way to augment how they work, to make them better. It's like instead of, I don't know, maybe putting hands, you farm with robots, you farm with drones. It's in a way, like how Singaporeans would say, same, but different. We should look at things. It's a way to really up level yourself to do more. And in fact, it may not even necessarily means more time. It would just be doing the same amount or maybe doing more, producing more with the same amount of time or even lesser amount of time. But to this on a part where 98% of organizations is considering AI integration in their operations, do you think there might still be a risk of over-reliance on technology at the expense of critical human skills? And what's your advice to business who should try to look into this and maintain the balance?
With a small population in Singapore, Adrian, we always need to think about how we're going to expand. And over reliance on AI and technology, if organizations are well guided with a founding board or a board or mentorship programs, which are very accessible in Singapore, we'll all know that expansion into new markets, expansion into new products and services has to happen as a result of human thought. And people understand the marketplace of particular venture, but the speed in which that you can accelerate into those markets can be definitely heavy lifted with technology. And that's no different to the hiring
Mm,
process as well, and finding where people are by utilizing QR codes and pizza boxes. So I think the part that the human plays for small to medium organizations, such as what I had before Deal did acquire
mm,
PayGroup, or whether it's a services business or a food and franchise business, you'll be able to crunch the data with AI and understand where you can go to market or where not to go to market at speeds that weren't possibly considered
mm.
before. But then when it comes to going to market, that human intervention, that human to be able to create the right ethos for your company comes to
Mm,
bear.
okay. And that's really interesting insight. And one of the other key thing that I've surveyed is that many companies see AI as essential for improving efficiency and productivity. I'm also reading about now where OpenAI and all seems to have reached where improvement has plateaued. Just continue using more and more AI to improve efficiency and productivity may create some form of unrealistic expectation about what AI can achieve in the workplace.
Possibly, if you've got a unguided business or business unit, I think that could be the
Mm,
case, Adrian. But where AI is working beautifully within organizations, it's taking the vast array of complex and trying to make it simple. I would suggest to your listeners, if they had an opportunity to see how that's working in action without being overawed by it, would be to join the Deel Global Payroll
Mm-hmm.
community if they are an HR professional or a payroll professional, and actually utilize Deel's AI for compliance and do what if scenarios for
Mm.
Brazil and do what if scenarios for Norway or Denmark, somewhere where it's particularly foreign for you, and to get an idea of how AI really will help you around complex but traditional business
Mm.
measures. The 98% that you saw before and in the study and what we were talking about in the last question, that's great to hear that there's 98% of founders, business leaders, all embarking on the journey, but they all won't reach the same point at the same
Mm.
time. So wonderful to hear that. A bit of no choice, no choice law, if we're going to go down some colloquial statements. We have to do it, and it's just the matter with which we have to do it. So the plateauing of OpenAI, the advancements of Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, all amazing aspirational points to reach. But are we reaching there where most of our population is
Mm.
employed? I don't think so,
Mm.
not yet.
So I think ultimately it is still about casting your net, the
Yeah.
kind of environment that you're accustomed to. And of course, given the of EOR providers like Deel, it has made things so much easier than 5, 10 years ago when I first started my business in 2004. This is never an option. Nobody in their right mind would
Right.
table this as a consideration. But currently, it's
Right.
made things so much easier. And of course, COVID has taught us how possible it is to work remotely. And I believe all this coming together would definitely help companies to look at options out there and to really consider, geo arbitrage, because it's so much easier to achieve that nowadays. It's like when budget airlines first come into play. A flight was so bloody
Ooh.
expensive, right? Almost every ticket is like a business class. But right now, okay, let's go Osaka, $600. Easy peasy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And one of my colleagues flying to Athens for absolutely ridiculous amounts of money. So doing a very unusual thing, taking your children out of school and off you go to Athens. It never used to happen before. But I've made those mistakes, Adrian. I've opened up entities in countries such as Myanmar and Cambodia in the
Mm,
past so that I can employ 2 or 3 people and make sure that my particular service that we were offering was done by
mm,
employees and created an overhead structure for our poor finance organization, particularly my chief financial officer, with which to be able to aggregate all that data and then have it audited and then bring it to some sort of semblance of
mm,
information at certain times. If I had my time again, there is no way I would do that. No chance. And, also my approach to bricks and mortar, I'm somewhat embarrassed
mm,
about now. I would hope that founders today and business leaders today and expansion experts today are thinking a little bit differently about bricks and mortar. We don't need to invest as much of the balance
mm.
sheet into those efforts and perhaps
Yep.
return that back into talent acquisition and return that back into people and return that back into
Mm,
education. Yeah, again, reflecting upon my own journey of starting up my business in Singapore in 2006
mm.
and seeing how the world's evolved, that's something that I would have addressed for sure. But not many of us have a crystal
Yes,
ball.
exactly. And that's a great point. I mean, everyone has finite resources. And if you're able to save on A, you
Really?
can deploy onto B. And I think, like you said, you don't have to pad up balance sheets. It's not those era where you need to have that strong a balance sheet to showcase to your shareholders. And once you have gone through the convenience and the good experience of, like, maybe a very grounded example, co-working space. If you have operated in a co-working space, no way in hell do you want to get your own office building, deal with the interior design, find your own cleaning crew, wash your own toilet. You'll never want to do that. You just want to turn up at WeWork or Just Co. Okay, end of the day, go. If you don't like the space, go somewhere else. It's so much easier.
We were starting up our own company and my co-founder and I are doing the dishes on the way out. Imagine if there was WeWork then, we would have, got home to our families 15, 20 minutes earlier. Something small measure like that, 15 or 20 minutes, but most of us treasure an extra 20, 30 minutes with our family at the end of the
Yeah.
day or a start of the day would have been magnificent. But you're right. And, there are different ways of doing things and we needn't be
Mm.
scared of them. We just need to understand and get that age old saying, get used to being
Mm. And I want to
uncomfortable.
highlight to people that's 20, 30 minutes a day. You have so many days in a year. You
It's,
literally adds up to
yeah,
about a month more of time to spend with your family.
there
That
you
that
go.
is amazing. And
Yeah,
I also want to go back to
yeah,
the earlier thing that you mentioned about setting up businesses in Myanmar and all that. I have heard from people that sometimes the toughest part is not about setting up. It is about the winding down. And many business owners
very,
and managers did not, like you said, nobody has a crystal ball. We can't see so far ahead. We never anticipate there will come a time where we have to wind down the operations and all the stuff that gets thrown in our face. Could you share a few examples of how difficult and
very
how troublesome and how much of a hassle it is to wind down a business? Just give us any example.
winding down a business in India and closing it is going to take you years upon years. So much so, some very high profile organizations in Singapore used to offer me their dormant Indian company with considerable tax losses to acquire so they didn't have to worry about it. So that is an exact example. Research, ask AI, research, the process of winding down your entity in India and going through all the processes through the court and everything. Now, India's jurisdictions, India's laws, legal laws, mostly not dissimilar to, I don't know, Romania. But as a founder or as a business unit leader or as you expand into different areas, as you test markets, don't rush to start up an entity. Bring those contractors on board, bring the employer of record people on board via the Deal platform in minutes. And then when you're
Hmm.
assured, ask Deal, we will set up the entity for you. But learn, understand, make sure the human elements understood clearly. And are you willing to have that overhead to
Hmm.
manage it? Again, going back to some of my micro markets, because as we know, Asia is a conglomeration of very small markets. Not every country will require an entity to be
Hmm.
set up.
It's similar to try before you buy, right? Before you buy the expensive car, you want to go for a test drive. Ideally, drive it for about 30 days. Rent it first, maybe, before you consider buying it. Yeah,
Rent
because
it.
for all you know, it may turn out to be a lemon.
That's right. Rent the Rolex. Try it. See if you like it. You may be like my aunt, where Rolexes just didn't work on her wrist. Imagine if she tried something about her body didn't allow the Rolex to run. So who knows? Absolutely. Try it, understand it, be comfortable with the area, and test your business philosophy without the
And the best way
overheads.
to do it is to approach an expert like Deal. And with that, thank you so much for coming onto the show to share more with us about your recent survey, the opportunities out there for business owners nowadays, and also some of the past lessons that we can draw upon from what you've been through before. And hopefully, moving forward, no business owners need to wash their own dishes, heeding your looking at this rent before buying philosophy. Any last words you have for our audience out there?
Please embrace the AI way of working. There is no choice but which to do so. And again, for your listeners, Adrian, don't hesitate to join the global payroll community at Deal. There is no cost to do that. You do not need to be a customer of Deals to do so. And you'll get a wealth of knowledge from the community, moderated by Deal, but not engaged by Deal. And our AI is there for you
I'll
to
get those links and
utilize.
add them to the show notes. And finally, before I let you go, for people who may be keen to learn more about yourself, ask you more about your shop house, where can they go to?
Please feel free to connect with me on my LinkedIn profile. I think that's the simplest way to do. And of course, Deal has got a plethora of YouTube channels, information on TikTok, obviously the normal channels of LinkedIn as well. There is enormous information there about our recent policy summit with the US senators, ex-senators. So it's well worth following Deal on all the typical socials. But for me,
Don't get to see you
LinkedIn.
dancing on TikTok. Not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet. Maybe you and I can one day.
We should. All right, Mark. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming onto the show.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adrian. It's a pleasure.